Hey guys, so some of you have been asking when I'm going to be putting out my next video. Well, here it is, and when I say some of you, I mean 2 or 3. But I've been very busy over the last few weeks. I've actually learned how to use WordPress and I've relaunched the Fleming website. Link is below. I've also hired a new team member. Alexander has joined the Fleming real estate team, and we've finally started to get rolling on the buy to flip project for beginners. So some people might actually disagree with me on this topic of this video, but I have been doing a lot of research. So please give us a thumbs up if you agree with me and a thumbs down if you don't. Today I want to discuss urban living versus rural living, and are cities really a thing of the past? There's loads of headlines out there about the mass exodus from different cities, and even RTE have a show about doing up rural cottages. First off, I am a big supporter of urban living, including increased densities. It's more sustainable, better services can be provided, people are less car dependent, better restaurants and entertainment can be actually provided as well. And even some technology are actually improving city life, such as Uber in some cities, and we also have electric scooters, and there's lots of new innovations that are actually improving city life. I acknowledge that we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and actually there are a lot of changes that are happening right now, especially in regards to work from home. However, cities are not just a place for work. If you actually look at the data, the cities that have grown the most over recent years have grown because of lifestyle choices, not actually work-related choices. Younger generations are more environmentally minded and are actually less car dependent and are happy to live in built up urban areas. Putting aside the last few months, actually tech pundits have actually had the view for at least the last 25 years that improvements in tech communications would actually mean that there'd be less need for face-to-face contact and cities would actually die out. That view has been around since the fax machine. It has been preached for over 25 years that improvement in communications will actually lead to the death of cities. I've actually had these discussions with many friends that work in the tech industry and had very heated debates with them over the last few years. They've been arguing that we'll all be living in cottages beside the seaside, working from home, and that's not something that they came up in the last kind of few months. This is something that they've been talking about for a few years, and I've always strongly argued against that fact. So I strongly disagree with this fact. While there might be a temporary shift in the next few years due to this pandemic, I actually think cities will endure and they'll come out stronger, and tech will actually improve city life. Maybe there will be some shifts, but I am very skeptical of the viewpoint that there will be a mass exodus from cities. I think cities will grow from strength to strength. So looking at it from an economic point of view and also from the past, what can we learn? So from an economic point of view, you look at it when a new technology or something changes, you look, does it actually complement the current activity or does it substitute the current activity? So now we're looking at, does technology now take away or complement face-to-face communications? If the tech substitutes a certain activity, i.e. it gets cheaper and easier to use, we do less of that other activity. If the tech complements that activity, when the tech gets cheaper and easier to use, we should do more, not less, of that activity that we're actually looking to substitute. So what I mean by this, when we actually take or look at the new technology that's out there in terms of Zoom and other software like that, that enables meetings that don't have to happen in person and can happen remotely, does that actually in the long term substitute face-to-face meetings, or will it actually mean that we'll have more face-to-face meetings? Based on my actual own experience, I actually believe that tech communications that improve our communications will actually lead to more face-to-face contacts. I can actually see this from my own WhatsApp groups. I have one WhatsApp group that has 40 lads in it. There's texts every single day and we meet up every once in a while. But I noticed that I actually communicate more directly with the people who live closer to me. An example of this was actually 2 weeks ago, where I took a photo of where I was having Saturday brunch. Within 20 minutes, there were 7 of us having a coffee together, planning out our Saturday afternoon. That would not have been possible without tech and urban living. So what do you actually think yourself in terms of your own communications and your own electronic communications? Do you actually make more contact with people who live close to you, or more contact with people who are further away from you. Sure, I actually use my phone quite a lot and I phone people all the time, but generally speaking, if I can actually meet up with someone and it's easy to meet up with someone, I will. Actually, data from US phone companies actually show people who live close together actually phone people more often and meet up more often as well. I actually think I fall into that pattern too. I find myself phoning the people who live closest to me more often, and I definitely meet up with them way more often too. So I actually kind of believe that the more communication tools we have, like Zoom or WhatsApp or whatever communication tools you are using for even in business that allow you to make more connections, I think they will lead to more face-to-face contacts as well. And in doing so, I think there will be a stronger and stronger demand for actually people living within the cities, because there will be more need and want to actually connect to people face to face. Despite the availability of online communications before the pandemic, there was actually a huge increase in face-to-face meetings. Global travel for business was way up over the last 20 years, so that just shows the importance of face-to-face meetings. Human beings are a social species, and we actually learn more when we're around smart people. I think the idea that we'll all be learning online in the future just doesn't make any sense to me. I believe that there will be an increased demand for education, and with that increased demand for education will increase the demand for city living as well. We've evolved actually over millenniums, and we have a huge amount of social cues that actually tell us how to respond in different situations. Those social cues are completely lost over camera or when you're not in the same room as someone else. Like right now, I have no idea if you're listening to me, paying attention to me, or have walked out of the room. But if I was in the same room as you, I would know exactly what your social response is to what I'm actually talking about right now. If technology actually makes cities irrelevant, we'd expect tech sectors to be located far away from cities. However, we actually see the opposite. Skilled and technology intensive industries are actually generally found located very close to the urban core of cities. Take Dublin for example. Dublin Docklands is very much the core of the city centre in terms of technology innovation. And more famously, actually, when you take Silicon Valley over in the US, every inspiring software engineer or every inspiring software genius will want to be based out in Silicon Valley. They don't want to be based there purely on an online presence. They want to be right there in the middle of it. Granted, some companies like Google have let their staff work from home since the start of this pandemic. However, what I would actually look at is in more detail is what they've done in the past. And I think that's even more telling in terms of what will happen in the future. Of all the companies that are out there, Google could have easily brought in working from home years and years ago, but they didn't. They actually did the exact opposite. They built campuses to keep people together. They encouraged people to eat and work out together and kind of try to keep people on the campus and within the buildings for as long as possible. They also bought buildings in major cities and knocked down all the walls to make sure that their staff could work as close together as possible. This is not a new concept. Michael Bloomberg did this years ago in his New York office, where he created open plan office mainly so traders could pass information quicker. Connecting people face to face is actually a crucial part of business, and it's a very important part of the creative process. Any business or company that doesn't realise this will suffer in the long term. Actually, I think there's a famous kind of quote out there in regards to Cambridge. It basically says that the majority of breakthroughs and ideas actually came not from the professor's office, but actually within Cambridge's tea rooms. There are loads of examples where working from home or working at long distance actually does work, and I definitely do think there is a place for it. And I'm not saying that there's no future to it. There are actually loads of case studies and loads of examples where companies have done really, really well and productivity is actually improved when they actually have moved to the work from home model. But in general, it only works for roles that do not require much creativity. I think I've heard that it's easy to do an old job from home, one that you know, but it's very difficult to learn a new role or change into a new role from home on your own. So actually one of the main reasons I actually think that Zoom calls and all changes in technology won't actually end face-to-face communications and won't be the death of the city is the fact that this theory has been talked about for 25 years And what has actually happened is all these improvements in communication haven't led to the death of the city. Cities have actually thrived. Populations have grown, incomes have grown, and house prices have grown, all within cities, far faster than rural areas. Long term, I believe urban areas are a safer investment bet. I do have concerns about some sectors pushing rural locations, also RTE shows that are trying to promote redevelopment of old cottages in rural Ireland. While it might be a great idea for an extremely small percentage of the population, the majority wouldn't suit the majority of people's needs. I think a few questions you should ask yourself if you are being swayed towards the direction of fixing up a rural cottage. First off, ask if it's suitable for you right now. Will it be suitable in a few years' time? Will it be suitable if you have kids in a few years' time, from a school point of view? Also from a work point of view, is it always going to be suitable from a work point of view? Or will your kids actually have any friends in the area? Will you become more and more car dependent, and will you have to drive everywhere? Where's your nearest shop? How do you get to your local pub or your local restaurant? Granted, there will be some people who will like this lifestyle, but even those people should ask themselves, if I buy this property, am I buying this property on the basis that it's cheaper to buy this property, or could I get a new home in the same town that's brand new, finished for the same price after I've done all the refurbs? You should also ask yourself, why has it been abandoned for 20 years? And if I do all this work and I need to sell it in a few years' time, will I be able to sell it? Or will I end up being abandoned again? Some people might just say, sure, he's a Dublin agent trying to get you to move to Dublin. But to be honest, I don't really mind or care where you live, but what I really want to do is to get you to ask better questions. As I really do not think the RTE show went into any great detail in regards to what questions you should really be asking when you're looking at a property. I think the only thing they actually focused on was the price of the house being so cheap and romanticised the whole idea of fixing it up. I grew up in the Dublin mountains, far away from public transport, so I know the pros and cons of living outside an urban area. And I, for one, wouldn't be rushing out of the Dublin urban area to a rural location right now while they're in quite high demand, because you might find in a few years' time that demand has actually dropped off considerably when we're over this pandemic. I'll finish up now, but I do think the future is urban development, not rural development. I think the future for future generations will be urban living, and that's, in my sense, that's a better investment opportunity, will be urban living. Also, in terms of us all moving to cottages, in terms of tech improving and we're all going to move to cottages, I don't see that happening. Maybe it might happen when Beam Me Up Scotty technology happens and it's available for everyone and we can just teleport to anywhere we want. Then fair enough, we might live in cottages, but until then I don't think that's going to happen. But for right now, I actually think improvements in technology are going to actually really improve urban living. That's what's happened over generations and decades and millenniums. Improvement in storage, improvement in water treatment, all these things gradually improve urban living, and I think that will continue to happen, and more people will like living within the city. I hope this video gave you something to think about. I'd love for your comments and feedback below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And again, as always, thanks for watching.